relative to the dismissal of the waste energy incinerator lawsuit. Tom, I was a little confused because I had just assumed that you were repping GRRP, but you actually represented the government of Guam in this case?
Yeah, I was representing Gita in this matter.
Does Governor Lou know about this? Because I don't know if she'd be too happy you got pesky Tom Fisher representing one of her agencies.
Well, what do you mean by that?
I had to check Nestor's measurement. Was this a typo? Hold on.
But this is a case, wow.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about the incinerator case in a long time. And so, wow. So is this done? Or could this go up on appeal?
Well, there's still time for an appeal. The judge dismissed it with prejudice, and they've got 30 days. I guess yesterday was their first day, so there's still some time to appeal it if that's what they intend to do. Really don't have any more information on an appeal, but we finally got it dismissed. It only took 20 years.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Talk about frequent trial miles.
Yeah, finally got it done. So glad to report that.
Can you explain the ruling from Judge Lamarena?
Yeah, we I guess a couple months ago, Gita made a motion to dismiss the case based on the fact that GRRP really wasn't doing anything on the case and hadn't been doing anything. They hadn't really done much of anything since filing the lawsuit. They hadn't even given us what lawyers call discovery. That figured into the judge's decision as well. But they just were completely inactive. And then the protagonist, I guess, for GRRP was convicted of some sort of fraudulent tax matter, I think in Hawaii, and I believe he's in federal jail right now. And it tells you that's the caliber of person who wanted to do business with the government of Guam. Mm-hmm. So, he cycled through just about every law firm on island trying to push this case forward. And the governor, Governor Liu, she hung tight and said, no, we're not going to do this. And we didn't, and we prevailed.
Mm-hmm. Can you kind of just refresh my memory? When was this actual contract for the waste energy facility signed? Was it in the 80s, 90s?
I think there was like a license.
I believe it was in Paul Calvo's administration.
I see.
And if it wasn't Governor Paul's administration, it might have been Joe Addis. Mm-hmm. But it was quite some time ago. And then you may remember that Mike Phillips, hats off to Mike Phillips, he's gone a long way in saving the government $20 million, I'll tell you that much. But he and the late Senator Ben Pangilinan, brought the case to the Supreme Court twice. It prevailed, well, actually 3 times, and prevailed. And this thing just kept cycling and cycling. And in the meantime, you may remember that the legislature passed a statute forbidding incineration on island. So that just made the contract impossible. And then we had to litigate that and so forth and so on. And, as I said, 10, 20 years later, here we are. To answer your earlier question, Sabrina, the judge dismissed it because you can't just, if you're going to file a lawsuit, you got to push it forward. You can't just file it and then walk out the door. It clogs up the calendar. Defendant, in this case, the government of Guam, is prejudiced. The time goes by, witnesses' memories fade, evidence disappears, and so forth. And this case just languished and languished. And you got to push it forward. They didn't do it. The court has a tremendous interest in, keeping their docket as clear as possible. I mean, all of us are familiar with the court saying, well, we're jammed up and we can't do this and we can't do that. And this is just one way under the rules that they can get a case that has just gone to sleep. They can get it off their docket. And so that was one of the reasons.
Yeah, I was reading it where I think it was the stop and start
yeah.
litigation, years of that. So
Well, this is a very
years.
controversial issue. But Attorney Fisher, I know you had mentioned that there's still the possibility of an appeal, but in your opinion, given the lack of traction on the part of GRRP, do you think that this ruling effectively ends this decades-long battle?
I hope it does. The suit to begin with was without merit. It was, GRP was claiming that they suffered $20 million in damages because they had designed this incinerator that was supposed to be down, where the Shell oil farm is in Suai?
The PD.
Yeah, it was supposed to be located down there. They didn't, their lease on that property had expired, by the way. But I hope this is the end of the litigation. There was, the suit was without merit. It had some peculiar twists and turns. We were actually in front of the legislature at one point when Gita submitted a proposed contract to the legislature. The legislature said, we're not going to look at this. And, like I say, it's a lot of strange twists and turns. I remember at one point it was represented to us by an attorney on island that every single senator was going to support this waste to energy project. And then I talked to then Senator Brant McCready about it, and he said he estimated the number of senators who would support this, a change in the law to allow the waste to energy program was, approaching zero. So
let me ask you my next question. If the legislature did repeal that law, because I know that Solid Waste Authority Director Larry Gast has said that he thinks it's a viable technology, but if the legislature repealed that law, in your opinion, would that open the door for another company to come in and strike a deal?
Yeah, I think so. There is a lot to be said for this technology. And I think that Governor Eddie Calvo, he supported the technology, but he didn't support, and I don't think Governor Liu does either, didn't support this peculiar relationship that had been established between Guam and GRRP. I want to say that was in the beginning of the Gutierrez administration. But, it's been around, it's certainly been around the block for a while. It could. There's a lot positive to be said about the technology, just not about the technology with this group, right. GRP.
Yeah.
Tom, for clarification, you mentioned something about the lease, that the lease was up for the incinerator contract. Is this
was that land
for
trust?
Chamorro Land Trust property?
It was.
I think it must have been. Yeah. It's been some time, but I'm going to say yes because there was no private litigant involved.
It was because I remember I interviewed the former CLTC director.
Joe?
No, Michael Borja, under the Calvo Tenorio administration. Mm-hmm. And so he had said that the land trust had actually been trying to serve Wadgi Gurgis with documents, but they couldn't locate him. And it was relative to that land. Yeah, and then I guess...
In terms of like being behind and paying?
Yeah, or something. There was something like, hey, they hadn't heard from him in like a number of years. And I understand that's because
he can be found now.
He was a little preoccupied, Tom, is what you're saying?
Well, actually, he's got a lot of time on his hands right now.
Oh, wow.
What? That's not very nice.
Yeah, right on. Well, okay, so that's that. I wanted to ask, just before we let you go, because we've only got a little bit of time, I'm just curious about your take on this whole, like, medical malpractice arbitration, magistrate judge, Bill 112, and just because I know you pay attention. I'm just curious if you had an opinion.
Well, I think my opinion boils down to this. This mandatory arbitration is just a scheme to protect the medical community and bar poor people and injured people from the courthouse. I see that all the doctors in their white coats are coming down to the legislature and, just screaming that, the roof is falling in. Well, they've just been, their reason for wanting arbitration is obvious. Litigants can't afford it. Somebody's gone into the hospital or wherever and suffered some sort of grievous injury, and now they're supposed to drop $40,000 on getting an arbitration done. They don't have the money for it. They won't be able to hire an attorney for it because they can't afford that either. And litigation in court itself is not cheap, but at least it's a better path to justice than essentially shutting the door to these people. So that's my opinion on it. I say get rid of this Arbitration Act. Let's go to medical. If you've got a medical malpractice suit, like any other suit, any other tort, bring it into court. See if you can prove your case. But don't make these people pay $40,000 just for an entry ticket. I think that's just obscene.
Well, let me ask you, because I've seen some of the doctors. I don't know if anyone mentioned this in the public hearing testimony, but I've definitely seen it on social media where they say that this Bill 112 is exactly what greedy lawyers want.
Yeah, because we'll go in and we'll make a fortune on it, right? So it's best to make the person who suffered at the hands of a particular doctor suffer and let one of those greedy ambulance chasing lawyers get their grubby paws on the cash, right? Let's make sure the doctors are just fine.
Oh,
That's my opinion.
there you go.
And you also have some experience with healthcare matters, right? Aren't you a former legal counsel for PMH?
Yeah. Up until about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was legal counsel for Guam Memorial Hospital.
All right. Well, I'm glad I asked your opinion. I was curious.
Yeah, well, this is we're supposed to be trying to build a more perfect union here, right? Aren't we trying to make sure that everybody gets justice? We don't care whether or not you're rich or poor. I mean, isn't that a fundamental principle? So let's stop barring people from entering the courthouse door.
Amen. Thanks, Tom.
Okay?
Thank you.
Appreciate your
welcome.
time. Have a good weekend, Tom.
You too. Thank you very much.
All right.
Take care.
Take it easy. There you go, Attorney Tom Fisher. Love that guy. You ask him a question, you're going to get an answer. None of this
No sugarcoating.
tiptoeing around. Very,
Straightforward.
very succinct, I would say. It's 9:15. Good morning. Let's go ahead and do Feed Me Fridays, brought to you by our friends at Ruby Tuesdays. We do it every Friday. And here it is with yours truly.
Hey.
In the words of Sergeant Paul Tapau, I'm
Here we
sitting
go.
next to a local celebrity,
Mhm.
Sabrina Salas.